What's up, my friend? Welcome back to another video. And today we're going to go over my top 3 sample library developers that I use on a regular basis. So this is a slightly different video because I'm not just focusing on a specific library, but more so looking at the company themselves and basically why I enjoy using them. The libraries might speak to me in some way. Maybe the patches themselves are really, really pretty, or they just have the musicality that I have in mind and I'm trying to reach. The tools really do matter in a lot of cases, and having them as a good starting point makes the mockup process so much easier, right? So these are the libraries that I appreciate the most, that I use the most, and I hope gives you a couple of ideas if you're on the market for some new libraries as well that maybe you can pull from this video as well. Okay. So before we get into it, if you want my condensed version of my of all of my sample library recommendations all in one place, then I would highly recommend downloading my sample library buyer's guide. It's a completely free PDF that you can grab below. Use the first link in the description box, and it goes through my favorite libraries in each orchestral section: the strings, winds, brass, and percussion. But I've also included some other ones in there as well, like piano libraries, jazz libraries, ethnic libraries, and a whole bunch of others that if you want like my personal preferences and you want them all in one place, you can read it in an hour or so, then you can download it really quickly. And it's totally free. Just you think of it as a little buyer's guide. If you're on the market for a new library, you're curious about my thoughts on it, then you can get access to that as well. Okay, so let's dive in. The first developer I use quite frequently, the most frequently, is the Cinematic Studio series company. So they have some really wonderful libraries, and at the time of this recording, they have not released their percussion library just yet, but what they do have is amazing. So let's start with CSS. I'm just going to go through my favorite patch or one patch from each of these libraries that we can get a sense of what they sound like, and then we can move on. So let's start with the violins. This is from Cinematic Studio Strings. So really pretty sound, right? All the legato transitions are very, very smooth. It makes the performance really lively and realistic, and I just really love the emotional passion that we feel in every single note. Then Cinematic Studio Solo Strings is a perfect complement to the ensemble strings. It's programmed in exactly the same way, and you get the individual instruments in their intimate setting. So let's have a listen to the viola here. Yeah, so considering this library has all the different solo instruments in there, and it's not like a dedicated cello library or a dedicated viola or violin library, I think the programming is really nice. It definitely has that darker signature consistent with Cinematic Studio Strings, but just the legato transitions and the overall vibrato heavy performances, they fit my bill of what I need in a lot of cases if I want solo strings. Very romantic, very passionate. That's the type of vibe that I personally like. So there we go. All right, then we move on to CSW, the woodwind library, and all the woodwinds are programmed really, really well. The flute is probably my favorite patch, in addition to the oboe and the English horn, but let's just have a listen to the flute legato here. It just has a pure sound to it. I really, really like the woodwind library. It overtook Berlin woodwinds for me, but yeah, just really pretty. Then for the horn library, for the brass library, I really like the solo horn. The ensembles are really great as well, and the horn section too. But here's a quick listen to the solo horn. And one of the major draws of this library is that it's so dynamic. It goes all the way from the very quietest pianissimos to the loudest fortissimos. And yeah, you can pretty much get everything you want there. But I would highly recommend using the majority of your lines in the lower dynamics and really only going up to the higher ones if you really need that punch and that accent. But too much of it gets a little wearing on the ears and it's not quite as realistic as well. So just be careful there. So that's the first developer I use often is the Cinematic Studio Series, as you probably know. The next one you can probably guess as well, and that is Cinesamples. So they're mainly known for the brass libraries. They have quite a few of these, and they're recorded in the Sony scoring stage with a beautiful sound. Let's just hear some of these trumpet ensemble articulations. So I use Cinebrass Core quite a bit. My favorite patches here would be the ensemble articulations for the trumpets, but also the horn solo true legato and the 6 horns ensemble articulations and true legato as well. Cinebrass Pro I really like too because there's a couple patches here like the trombone ensemble articulations are really good. The tuba is really nice as well. So it just expands the Cinebrass lineup a little bit more. Cinebrass Sonore is another library I do enjoy. This one, let's just hear the horns legato. So this was 4 horns. Right, so a really pretty sound there, and the legato is drastically better, I think, than the Cinebrass original libraries. Okay, then I also use the harp quite a bit, Cineharps. Here's just the concert harp patch. It has such an open, detailed, pretty sound there in the Sony scoring stage. And then the other library I use a lot is Cineperk. So here's just the timpani. So I really like this patch because they combine the single hits and the rolls in here, and you can use the mod wheel to kind of ride through the dynamics for those rolls so you can create your own. So Cinesamples is my go-to for percussion and harp and piano. Cinematic Studio Series is my go-to for strings and woodwinds. Okay, so just so we know there. And then the last developer I'll use is Performance Samples. And yeah, the libraries overall have a very similar vibe to what I like in my sample libraries. Very passionate, very romantic, and Jasper luckily has that vision as well for his library, so it matches up very well. The one thing you do want to keep in mind is that these libraries are not compatible with the Kontakt player, so you do need the full version of Kontakt in order to run his libraries, whereas Cinesamples and Cinematic Studio Series, they do run in the Kontakt player, which is free, so you can access them there, but for performance samples, you will need the full version of Kontakt. So Vista is a legato-only library, focusing on a chamber size, but it still sounds pretty symphonic. Here's what that sounds like. You can tell, very over-the-top romantic, very passionate. Konmodo is a similar library, but a little more pulled back, still very smooth with the transitions, legato only as well, but yeah, not quite as over the top as Vista. So here's the cellos. All right. And then the most popular of his library so far is Pacific Ensemble Strings. So here's the violins. It's a symphonic size. So if you want that bigger sound, then you're going to get that here with Pacific. Right, definitely quite large. And then the last library I want to share with you here is a solo library. Solos at the C. He has two solo violins, solo violin A and B. And that's what this sounds like. All right. And to me, this library sounds really nice because it's only that one dynamic layer that he recorded with the legato transitions. So there's no crossfading between the different layers, causing that phasing sort of effect. Really, really pretty. And so, yeah, Performance Samples is the third developer that I like to use because the approach with the libraries matches with my personal aesthetic for my mockups, which I really enjoy. So for the bulk of my work, will be the Cinematic Studio Series and Cinesamples. Again, Cinematic Studio Series, I use the strings and the woodwinds most of the time. From Cinesamples, I use the brass and the percussion most of the time. And then from Performance Samples, I'll use Vista, I'll use Komodo as more like layering tools to add some more detail and more fullness to my overall patches, my overall lines. And for me, these three developers capture pretty much everything I need to do with my sample libraries and my mockups. I couldn't be happier. The tools are just available to us nowadays, and they're really it's just easier than ever to get better results than ever before. And I think we're really blessed, honestly, to have these available. And so I'm thankful to developers who continue trying to make better libraries, who want to make realistic orchestral sounds that are available to us, and it just enables us to really have an orchestra at our fingertips, and that's an amazing thing. So if you're curious about the rest of my recommendations for different sections and stuff, then I highly recommend you checking out my sample library buyer's guide. It's a full PDF that goes over my recommendations. I've also included the prices and the utilities for those libraries. So if you're on the market for something new and you're curious about my thoughts on it, you can feel free to check that out for absolutely free. So just click the first link below and you can grab it as my thanks to you for checking out this video today. I really appreciate it. I'll catch you in the next video and I'll see you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.